ended. It just stopped. For some reason. I have no idea why it stopped, but it stopped. I don't know. But that's different from what I've experienced in the past. The console actually told me it stopped, so yeah, I don't know what that was all about. So hopefully this works as it should now with this. Yeah, strange. Don't know why it ended there. Don't know why at all. Anyway, hopefully we remain uninterrupted from here to the end of the race. Hopefully everything appears like it should be working just fine, so I'm happy it's all working now. But yeah, that's very strange. It just decided to end for no apparent reason. Nico here appears to be on an in-lap. Flavius appears to be on a flying lap, making his way through turns 3 and 4 through the car park and around turn 5 up towards the first sector split. Turn 6, 7 and 8 has proven to be an interesting area of the racetrack, particularly turn 7. Seen on a few occasions drivers lose the back end of the car while riding the inside curb of turn 7. And if you lose control, you can quite easily end up in the barrier. Very similar story with turns 9 and 10. The inside curbs at both of these corners are very dangerous. I mean, they are very rewarding as well. If you cut enough of them, you can gain a significant amount of time. But if you get really unlucky with the curbs, you can be very easily shafted. Now, KD is about to begin a flying lap here. He's making his way around the final corner. We're going to ride on board with the McLaren driver, give you a guided tour of this 3.3 mile racetrack. Down the main straightaway towards turn 1, 8th gear, climbing towards 200 miles an hour as he gets on the brakes, down to 5th gear and heads around turn 2 onto the other long straightaway with DRS open. He shifts it into top gear, brakes at the 100 meter board and brings it down to 3rd gear, clips the apex nicely as he heads around turn 4. 4th gear, kisses the inside curb, has a little bit of the outside curb as well. You have to be careful at turn 5 too. That outside curb can be quite nasty. Through turn 6 into turn 7 and around turn 8, absolutely flat out through this section. And you'll see speeds closing towards 200 miles an hour. I don't think they'll quite reach it though. Big KD hitting about 195 as he goes into turn 9 and around turn 10. Nice run through there. Very tidy, very precise from KD as he heads towards turn 11. Newly configured compared to the original design. It's a lot sharper this time around. We head around turn 12, up towards turn 13. He brings it down to 3rd gear, clips the apex well, and around the final corner, turn 14. Back onto the main straightaway with DRS open. And that's one lap of Albert Park. And KD will jump up to P2 during this qualifying session with a 1 minute 17.754. Currently 36 hundredths. No, it's a bit, 3600. Got the math right the first time between the top two. JBH slowing down. He's invalidated this run. He might have done that at the final corner. He could have done it through the first 2 corners, but you can see he's making his way. Short-cutting the racetrack. Trying to get back into the pits as soon as possible. Saucy improves to a 17.680. He pulls away from KD in P2. Meanwhile, our championship leader, Mighty Wombat, I believe has just completed a flying lap. Currently P3 with a 17.819. He's 600ths behind his teammate. Nico, meanwhile, the man who was 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, making his way around turn 3 and around turn 4. You have to be careful with that outside curb. The car can get quite unsettled through there. And you also don't want to run too wide. You can gather up a few warnings if you do that, as Nico improves by 2/10 to the first sector. Now, if he wants pole position, he has to improve by about that amount, by just over 2/10 of a second. So, if he can string the rest of this lap together nice and tidily, he could take pole away from Saucy. He's now up by 3/10. As he heads through turn 10, or uses all of the curb on the outside, it's lucky that he doesn't get a warning. As he heads towards turn 11, hard on the brakes, down to 4th, down to 2nd gear, short shifting, back up to 3rd. as he heads around turn 12 now, down to 5th gear. Oh, I've got very close with the yellow line there on the outside. Now around the final corner, turn 14, back onto the main straightaway with DRS open. Climb up through the gears towards the finish line, and it's pole position for Nico for now. 1 minute 17.508. He's taken pole by just under 2/10 to Saucy, who was making his way back into his garage. Appears that Axis has just set a flying lap, and he's P4 just in front of Mighty Wombat, and I mean just, only 7,000 separating the two championship protagonists. Seems that Underwood's slowing down here. There goes Axis around the outside, who I mentioned, I think is on an in-lap. Oh, he is using battery here. He might be on a flyer. I don't know. He has to be careful with the clock. Got just over 5 minutes left in the session, so if he wants to complete this flying lap, he does have to do another lap around the circuit, which could take some time. No, he's coming in. He's coming in. Blockman making his way through the final two corners. He's going back into the pits. He's currently P7 with an 18.4. Rebellion has invalidated this run. JBH, he appears to be out of fuel, according to the telemetry, so he has to make his way back into the pits. Shizan, I think he's doing the same as well down in P11. So we've got a lot of drivers in the pits. Everyone out on track is either on a... not either, they're all on in-laps right now. None of them are preparing to set a flying lap, I would think. Except for maybe Shizan. Shizan could try a flying lap, but he's not. He's going to come into the pits. Another newly designed path of the circuit is the pit entry. It is quite narrow at the very beginning of it, so you do have to be quite careful when you make your way into the pits. And also the speed limit has been increased. On the original layout, it was 37 miles an hour, or 60 kilometers an hour. It's now been increased to 50 miles an hour. But you can still be very much caught out by how quickly you enter the pits. Excuse me. Very nice, JBH. But, yeah, you still have to be quite careful when making your way into the pits. You don't want to go in too quickly. You don't want to be too late on the brakes, because it's very easy to give yourself a speeding penalty. It's one of a few racetracks where you can do it quite easily. Tracks like Monza and Silverstone are quite famous for it, because of how hard you actually have to get onto the brakes when you're coming into the pits and heading towards the speed limiter line. Now, someone's coming out. Who is that? Making their way out of the pits. JBH coming in. It's Rebellion making his way out. With just 3 minutes left in qualifying. He's currently P9 with an 18.735. Just under a second behind Nico's pole time. And he's about 2.5 tenths behind Hash in P8. So that's how much time he has to gain if he wants to improve position. Got Flavius on an outlap as well. Shizant's making his way out. So is KD, the man who was currently P3 during this qualifying session. If he wants to take pole position away from Nico, he has to improve by 2.5 tenths. So, be interesting to see how these drivers fare right at the end of this qualifying session. Just over 2 minutes left now. We'll have everyone else make their way out of pit lane, getting ready for their final runs. Shizant, his tyres, Rebellion, his tyres will now be up to temperature. He's preparing himself now. He'll switch on the battery, there we go. As he makes his way around turn 13, up towards turn 14, and onto the main straightaway. DRS open, and he'll begin his final flying lap of the session. What could be his final flying lap of the session. He still has enough time left on the clock, so if he makes a mistake, he'll have time to get around and have another go. Down towards turn 3, hard on the brakes, down to third gear. Keeps it in third on the exit. A slow McLaren, I think that would be KD going slowly. He was the first McLaren to go out on track. His teammate is just behind him. So we'll have both McLarens begin their run shortly as Rebellion's up by 1.5 tenths to the first sector. So a solid improvement to the first sector for him. Wombat getting ready. Axis getting ready. KD beginning a flying lap into turn 1, 5th gear, back on the accelerator and around turn 2. DRS open as he heads towards turn 3, shifts it into top gear. Yellow flags are out of slow Ferrari at the exit of turn 11. Out of turn 3 goes KD. Around turn 4, hovering in 4th gear, modulating the throttle nicely as he heads around turn 5 up towards the first sector split. Clock says he's up by 59 thousandths of a second. Meanwhile, his teammate making his way around turn 5 now. What will the clock say to the first sector for him? Clock says he's up by 1/10 of a second to the first sector. What about Axis as Underwood retires? Believe he's done that in the pit lane, so his qualifying session is done. Axis is up by 3/10 of a second to the first sector. He's found a whole chunk of time. To the second sector, KD is still up. Not by much, though, by 79 thousandths. Mighty Wombat's found a 10.5. Axis, meanwhile, he heads up towards the middle sector split. He's found almost 4/10 to the middle sector. Oh, Nico spun at turn 2. His qualifying session is done, so he cannot try and improve. KD's jumped to the top, a 17.3. Mighty Wombat, oh, sliding out to the final corner. That will cost him time as he heads up towards the line. It's an 18 flat. He cannot improve. But what about Axis? Can he take pole position away from KD? The answer is yes, a 17.221. He's just beaten KD by a 10.5. But what about Saucy? Can he improve? He does. It's P3 with a 17.492. Rebellion, his session is done. Blockman goes to P7 now. Improves by 3/10 to do an 18.1. Hash will make his way towards the finish line, and he doesn't improve. It wasn't a great final run for the Ferrari driver, and Shizant, his qualifying session is over. So it's Axis who will start from pole position, a key pole position for the context of the championship. A 17.221 is his pole time, with KD in P2 just over a 10.5 behind with a 1 minute 17.377. There we are. A tight qualifying session here at Albert Park. Not much separating the top two. It'll be interesting to see what unfolds during the race. Just be waiting on Shizan to retire from qualifying. And then we'll move on to the results screen. Meanwhile, I'm getting my math down so I can keep the constructors in check. We'll go through the final results here in this qualifying session. Axis will start from pole, KD from P2, Saucy in P3, Nico P4, Mighty Wombat in 5th place, the championship leader with a bit of work to do. Underwood P6, followed by Blockman, Rebellion, Hash and Shizant rounds out the 10, followed by JBH, Motion God and Flavius will start from the back in 13th place. 23 plus 1 will give us 19, 49, 62, 63 points. Alright, so Aston Martin need to outscore McLaren by 18 points in this race. And considering that McLaren have 2 cars, compared to Aston Martin with 1, it's not looking good. Realistically, if Aston Martin want to stay in the fight for the sake of the constructors, both McLarens need to retire out of this race. So, with the math, as it stands right now, both championships could be wrapped up here in Melbourne. But obviously, with Axis taking pole position, that is a huge boost for himself, and he needs a boost, especially after what happened at Abu Dhabi, where he was set to win that race, but he threw it away. A simple mistake at the final corner, put himself into the wall, and his race was over. Like that. So, he needs a bounce back here at Albert Park. Green lights are on, the formation lap begins. Who's starting on what tyre for this Grand Prix? Well, it's not a huge mix, but we do have a bit of a mix going on here. Axis from pole position is starting on the medium compound tyre. KD from P2 is starting on the hard tyre. Saucy in P3 is starting on mediums. Nico and P4 starting on the hards. Wombat and Underwood and P5 and 6 are starting on mediums, followed by Blockman, who is starting on the hard tyre. Then the following 6 cars: Rebellion, Hash, Shizant, JBH, Motion God, and Flavius are all starting on the mediums as well. So that means we have 10 cars starting on the mediums and 3 on the hard compound tyre. Be interesting to see who gets the strategy right, particularly those towards the front. So we've got a split between Axis, KD, Saucy, and Nico, the top 4 on alternating strategies. Now that medium tyre is superbly quick compared to the hard compound tyre. And it does last a while, the mediums. It can last up to 16 laps, according to the game. So it can last for some time. But, these hard tyres, yeah, they can definitely last a while. But they just don't have the pace. So it'll be interesting to see the pace difference between the likes of Axis, KD, Saucy, and Nico at the start. Be interesting to see how this man fares at the beginning of the race as well. Needs to get up close and personal with Axis, I would think. He doesn't necessarily need to battle him. He just needs to stick with him. Make sure he doesn't pull too far away. Alrighty, the leaders are now lining up into their respective grid slots. Seeing some drivers doing some burnouts on the grid, trying to get their tyres up to temperature. Saucy was disqualified. He's missed his grid slot. Top 2, they're set and ready to go. Everyone else lining up, getting themselves ready. Not the biggest field in the world. We only have 13 cars, but it should still be an interesting race regardless. Well, that's the hope anyway. They're all lined up, ready to go. We got 29 laps in front of us and 10 red lights, and we're underway here in Melbourne. And as expected, it's a great start from Axis. A poor start from KD. He's being overtaken by Saucy into turn 1. Here we go, chucking it in now to the right-hander, through the left-hander of turn 2. Got some drivers in the midfield squabbling for position, as expected. JBH trying to cover off those behind him as we head down into turn 3. Blockman looking down the inside here. It's tight. Oh, they all relatively get through. Looked a tad bit clumsy, but they all get through. That's the main feed. Mighty Wombat's up to P3 as well. He's had a pretty decent start. KD has got a whole train of cars directly behind him as he heads around turn 8 and towards turns 9 and 10. See all of these guys closely bunched together. JBH trying to look around the outside of Underwood, and he does it. He's into P6. Into turn 9 now, the left-hander. Running wide is JBH. He has to cut the circuit, and around goes Nico into the wall. He spins on the outside of turn 10. Oh dear. He needed a lucky race here in Melbourne to keep his championship hopes alive, and has not started off well. Around turn 12, the 2 Ferraris are battling. JBH having a moment at the exit of turn 12. We head around turn 13 and around turn 14. Rebellion, he's off the grass. He's off the track. He's on the grass. He's down in P12 now. Dear, oh dear. Oh, a bit of a wiggle there on the exit as well, but keeps the car straight. That's the main thing. Or sideways moment there for Underwood at the exit of turn 2. JBH closes in and passes the Ferrari. JBH into P6. Blockman under attack. Around the outside looks Shizan. He's going to try and make this work, you know. Down the inside of turn 4. A fantastic move. Around the outside of 3 and down the inside at 4. Blockman running wide as well. Be careful when you run wide like that. Don't get a great deal of grip out there. There's some action here at the start of this race. Saucy keeping Axis for company. 0.6 of a second separating the top two, with Mighty Wombat in third place. That's where he needs to be. Just needs to drive nice and comfortably right here. Doesn't need to take any massive risk. Axis heading around the penultimate corner, turn 13, up towards turn 14. Got a clear track in front of him, Axis. He's able to keep Saucy at bay, but now it's lap 3. DRS is now enabled, and Saucy, there you go, 21.8. He's got pace in the Red Bull. Through turn 1, into turn 2. There's the call from race control. DRS is now enabled. Down the long straightaway towards turn 3. Saucy closing, but not by enough to attack here into the right-hander. Up towards turn 4. And he does have to deal with a little bit of dirty air coming off the car in front. Dealing with it quite well. The car looks good. There's Mighty Wombat hovering in the background in P3. Around turn 8. And through this flat-out section towards turn 9. See Saucy's in the slipstream. He's able to close in just a little bit. Into turn 9 now, chucking it into the left-hander. Around turn 10. You can see how much you can cut. But it's a double-edged sword there at turn 10. You can cut a lot and gain time. But you run the risk of having the game spin you out because of the curbs. The car can become very unsettled and spin you into a wall as Underwood moves by JBH. He's into P6 now. And Underwood should get DRS as well, heading down the main straightaway. That should keep JBH at bay. Closing in down the main straightaway, Saucy. He looks the inside there, just trying to tell his rival, hey mate, I'm right here. You make a mistake, I'll have you. I'll have the race lead. Into turn 3. Axis though, he's not folding under the pressure. He's driving well out in front. And these two collectively are pulling away from the rest of the field. Mighty Wombat here in P3 is now 2.6 seconds behind the top two as JBH gets a 3-second time penalty. Oh, and in the wall is Underwood. He slams into the outside wall at the exit of turn 5 and tumbles down through the order. He's now behind Blockman. And I think, yes, he's got front wing damage. He's got a missing end plate on the front wing as Motion God has had a similar accident at the same corner. He's got a completely missing front wing though. No virtual safety car, no safety car at all from that, even though there is a front wing just left there on the middle of the circuit. Oh, what's happened to JBH here? Oh, turn 10. He's claimed another. JBH tumbles down the order. Down to 12th position behind Nico, who fell foul to the same corner a few laps earlier. Rebellion, I believe, made his way by Flavius. I think that was a pass I didn't quite see there. I think that was the overtake. Rebellion now into 9th place. Someone's coming in. Is it? Yes, it's Underwood. He's going to get a front wing change, and he'll move on to the hard tyre, which should make it pretty easily, I think, to the end of the race. So he doesn't necessarily... Oh, he's putting on another set of mediums. Might be trying a 2-stopper. I mean, why not? Might as well try something. Hard tyres for JBH, and I think they can make it. I'm pretty certain they can make it. Nico now gets by Flavius as well, so Nico into 9th. Half a second still separating the top two. Axis has got good pace. He's able to keep Saucy at bay, but he isn't able to drop him. Saucy still within that half-second range. Round turn 10. DRS open on the Red Bull. It closes in towards turn 11, but not by enough. Round turn 11 we go. Up towards turn 12. Saucy just keeping him company right now. Just doesn't really look like he's in any sort of position to attack. He's just hovering behind, letting the laps tick down. Might try and pass later, maybe towards the pit window, maybe, to move on to the hard tyre. Maybe that's when he'll start to attack. See, right now he's 3/10 behind. Maybe he'll go for it now. He's got battery in hand. He's got just under 50%. Around turn 3. turn on the telemetry as well. There it is. Just over 50 now. Axis has got 80%. So Axis in a really solid position right now in terms of resources and track position. He's got both of them in hand. See him using a bit of battery here around turn 8. He's extending the margin to P2. Now the gap's starting to shrink again. Potentially Saucy has a car that's a lot better down the straights. It's a low downforce setup, which allows him to have a higher top speed. And towards turn 11, you can see Saucy, he's just not quite close enough to do anything just yet. So I think Axis is the only person on track who can undo himself right now. You know, Saucy is too far away to try and pass Axis. And Axis has got enough resources to keep Saucy at bay. So I think the only person on the whole grid that can move Axis from the race lead is Axis himself. And unfortunately, he has done that in the past. He did that last week, and he knows that. So he needs to make sure he can keep it clean, keep it straight, and keep it in the lead. Hash with a flashing red light at the back of his Ferrari. He's low on battery. Shizen's directly behind him, P6. There's Blockman in 7th. 1 second behind now. Around turn 6. Through turn 7 and around turn 8. There was a brief shot of KD, who, lest we forget, is on the hard compound of tyre. I believe he's the leading hard runner of the field right now. Yes, he is. He doesn't have pace right now, but he's hoping that when he moves on to the medium tyre in the second half of the race, he's going to be extremely rapid. We have yellows out. It's Motion God spinning at the final corner. He gets pointed back in the right direction, and he gets going again. Well done there. Yeah, KD sort of demonstrating the lack of pace the hard tyre has. It's kind of a useless tyre when it comes to extracting pace. You just don't have any. You need to get off it as soon as you possibly can and move on to the medium compound tyre. Just a better tyre all round in terms of raw pace. Saucy still hovering behind. Saucy can afford to play a bit of a patient game right here, right now. It's only lap 8 of 29, so we've still got a long, long way to go in this race. So you don't necessarily need to battle now. So we have a battle on right now between Hash and Shizen for P5, and Blockman is going to get involved. Out of turn 5, running wide is Blockman. Be careful when you do that. It's always so nerve-wracking when you see someone run out wide like that. So easy to put it into the outside wall and ruin your race. See, Hash is out of battery. He's completely out of battery. Shizen, he's got 15%. Blockman's got a ton. He's got 55 next to his name. You can see he's a bit stranded on the hard compound tyre. And that's something KD didn't need. A 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. I think for his strategy with the alternate hard medium strategy, you need to try and keep it penalty free. So yeah, that's going to hurt him, I'd imagine. Especially if we have a late race safety car running wide as Shizen. He's compromised. Blockman's on the back of him as he heads out of the final corner. But you can see Shizen. He also has DRS. Can he keep Blockman at bay? Blockman's closing. Yes, he can keep Blockman at bay. Through turn 1, into turn 2. Oh, you can see how much understeer he's getting. Yellows are out. It's Motion God. What's happened here? He's made a mistake at turn 5. The 3 leaders have moved by. Motion God gets going again. And KD is closing in. Blockman, a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. He's on the hard tyre as well. But you could see it when we went on board with Blockman at turn 2. He wasn't in any way committed to turning the steering wheel any further than he did. He has no trust in the car's front or rear end that it can grip into a corner and he can get around it as quickly as possible. He's got no confidence in it whatsoever. He just had a ton of understeer, went wide at turn 2, sort of interrupted his run of trying to attack Shizen at turn 3. Because I definitely think he was close enough at the exit of turn 1 to perhaps try and have a go at turn 3. There is KD. Sorry, no, that is Mighty Wombat. This is KD. Then Hash, Shizen, and Blockman. Saucy's closing. 2.5 tenths is now the gap, so Saucy's starting to dial up the pressure. Axis just needs to keep his cool. Through turn 6, into turn 7, and around turn 8. Saucy will have a decent slipstream here through the flat out section. Still see Axis has got a ton of battery next to his name. And he can use that whenever he wants. Exiting turn 10, you can see the two very different lines through turn 10. Axis with a more conservative traditional line. Saucy, he's manipulating the track limits to his favour, but he is running a risk of potentially losing control of the car and ending up in the barrier. Up towards turn 13. Towards the final corner, turn 14. And the slip. Oh no! I thought he was going to have a go. He was close, but that little wiggle at the exit of the final corner, it ruins his run. He cannot attack here into turn 1. Can he get a nice run, though, through the opening 2 corners? It's pretty solid, but I still think he's too far behind to really attack Axis into turn 3. And I'm right. He stays behind, stays in P2. Hash under assault here. Shizen runs wide onto the grass. This might lose him a position. Oh, contact, no! And into the wall goes Blockman. Oh, that is clumsy. A dangerous rejoin, I would think, from Shizen there. And it's put Blockman off the circuit and into the wall. And he's got damage as well. So he'll have to go into the pits and get that fixed. As Rebellion had a moment. Running wide is Blockman. He's trying to get out of the way. Side by side through turn 5. Rebellion wins that battle for now. But, oh, poor Blockman. Completely innocent in all of that. Tried to go around the outside of Shizen, as you would normally. Shizen just sort of lazily drifted into Blockman, and 2 made contact, and to put Blockman into the wall. Yellows are out. It's Motion God again. And he's got front wing damage this time around. You'll have to pit and get that thing fixed. Here's the 2 leaders, Axis and Saucy, now separated by 6.5 tenths as they head down the main straightaway. So Saucy hasn't had the best of laps here. Again, he's weaving out to the side saying, mate, I'm still right here. You might have dropped me a little bit, but I'm still very much right here, right behind you. Down towards turn 3, not closing in by enough here to attack into the right-hander as Rebellion pits. This is close to the pit window, so this might be a strategic stop. It is. So he's going to try an undercut. Don't know if that'll work here. With the sheer pace of the medium tyre, I'm really not thinking that's going to work, but we'll see. Blockman had to pit after what happened at turn 2. He gets a new set of tyres and away he leaves. Saucy, 3 tenths behind, heading into turn 9. See Axis doing a really nice job. He's managing, pacing himself quite well. Down towards turn 11. Underwood and Flavius have changed places as well. Underwood up to 9th, and in fact, there's Rebellion involved in this as well. Up towards turn 6. Underwood's close, but just not quite close enough to really do anything here through this chicane complex. Heading around the sweeper, though, he's got momentum, and he's buried in the slipstream too. You can see Rebellion dumping his backstreet, trying to keep Underwood at bay. Underwood, he's unfazed. He's not using any of his backstreet to try and respond. He just used some DRS after this section to try and close in. Oh, Hash, what's happened here? He's on the grass now. And Saucy has made a mistake at turn 2. He's thrown away his second position. At the second corner on the racetrack, he's down to 3rd. Oh, dearie me. He was right behind Axis, doing a brilliant job, and he's thrown it away. Now Mighty Wombat occupies P2. Interesting. The top 2 in the championship are now the top 2 in the race. Hash now comes out of the pits. He's moved on to a set of hard compound tyres after his spin at turn 13. He's got Flavius directly behind. Will he attack? Will he try and find a way by? Doesn't quite have the momentum, Flavius, to try and do anything here into turn 3. Now, I couldn't see any obvious damage on the Red Bull, so I think Saucy is okay. Yeah, his front wing looks fine. But man, you'd be pretty disappointed with that. Putting Axis under pressure, who is now pitting in. Moving into the pits, so he's going to pit early. Move on to the hard tyre, try and undercut. Hard tyres at the ready, and on they go. Away he leads. Saucy doing the same. No front wing adjustment, no replacement, so his car should be okay. It's now a McLaren 1-2 out on track. Mighty Wombat leading from KD as JBH gets a 3-second time penalty. KD still needs to make a pit stop to get off those hard tyres and onto a set of mediums. He'll have a whole heap of work to do in the second half of the race. Mighty Wombat, though, with a clear track in front. He's dumped his battery. This might be a quick in-lap from Mighty Wombat. Maybe that's what he's trying to achieve out there by using so much battery. Axis, he'll be trying to get those tyres up to temperature, and as you can see, he has got a metric ton of battery left to deploy. He's using a fair chunk of it on this outlap. Wombat, he's only got a couple of corners left to get through before he makes it to the pit entry. Hash, 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. He's done 13 laps on the tyres. Yep, he's moving in. So it was a quick in lap. He was dumping his battery on purpose. And he's in. Has the overcut worked? Has the undercut worked? I suppose there's only one way to find out, isn't there? On go the hard tyres and away he leaves. Axis should remain out in front. Should. McLaren still in the pits. There is Mighty Wombat. It might be pretty even. Once Mighty Wombat gets his tyres up to temperature, Saucy takes P5 as his teammate is in the pit lane. Yeah, 3.2 seconds, 3.3. It's the gap. So the undercut hasn't worked massively. Overcut hasn't worked either, and in fact with the overcut it means that Mighty Wombat has to take his time getting his tyres up to temperature. Meanwhile, all of those around him have tyres that are already up to temperature. Rebellion, Underwood trying to battle Shizant as they head around turn 5. 3 different strategies going on here as we head into turn 6. Through 7. Around turn 8. 110 separating Shizant and Rebellion. Underwood trying to find a way to get himself involved in the battle. Rebellion looking around the outside here. Shizant covers, looking down the inside now. Oh, he's having a go. Contact! I suppose that was only inevitable when you're trying to go down the inside there. There goes Hash. There goes Blockman. Rebellion down to 10th. Oh, and he spins out again. Now he gets going. Yeah, that's the pitfall of trying to go down the inside at a place like turn 9. Such a fast corner, has a very, very narrow racing line, turn 9. So if you're not on that racing line, you're properly compromised to everyone around you. He tried to go down the inside, and there was no way Shizam was going to give any room there. No one would have given room there. And yeah, Rebellion got the short end of the stick, unfortunately, and he spun out. Blockman and Hash separated by 7/10, so we might have a battle between these two soon. When will KD pit? It's lap 16, so when he crosses the line, it'll be 4... crosses the line, it'll be 13 laps to go. So I reckon he could pit now. He could pit right now. Move on to the medium compound tyre. See what he does. No, he's staying out. Another thing that he could do is wait for a safety car to come out. Might give him a chunk of track position. Suppose we'll wait and see what KD does. Meanwhile, Hash under a bit of pressure from Blockman, who is closing in. Not by enough to attack into turn 11, though. He has to stay behind. But you can see Hash isn't in a very good position when it comes to battery. Only 6% compared to 60 on Blockman's car. Probably get rid of the telemetry now. Not only that, but KD can play the team game. I'll talk about that later. We'll focus on this as Blockman makes a pass. An elementary pass, utilising the power of DRS. He gets by. Hash can't really counterattack. And Blockman will get DRS here, which should allow him to pull away from the Ferrari and keep P7. But one thing KD can try and do is play the team game. Essentially create the Great Wall of McLaren and try and keep Axis at bay to allow Mighty Wombat to catch up. Axis is closing in, looking to the inside, and KD leaves the door wide open. That is the exact opposite of what I was saying. Well, there you go. Never mind. KD, will he move into the pits now? He's going to move into the pits. In he comes. We'll have a set of medium tyres at the ready. So this is the battle now. Axis and Mighty Wombat, 3 seconds separating the top two, with Nico in third, still yet to pit, and Saucy in fourth. KD coming out of the pits. He'll be P5 when he leaves the pit lane. He's got a job to do to try and catch up to Saucy. It's a fairly decent sized gap. Shizant in a lonely P6 with Blockman in 7th, then Hash. JBH and Rebellion only half a second separating these two. Might have a battle on a few moments time. They head down the main straightaway towards turn 1. Rebellion has DRS. He can close in. There's Underwood just behind as well. Around turn 1 into turn 2. Gap sitting at 4.5 tenths as we head down towards turn 3. Not close enough to attack here into the right-hander, so he has to stay behind. Meanwhile, Axis is enjoying life out in front. Clear track, no distractions. Just needs to keep it tidy. Mighty Wombat in a comfortable P2. We head down this long straightaway towards turn 1. See, Wombat has actually closed in just a smidgen. 2.7 seconds, 2.6. Now the gap 2.5, so it's not over just yet. Not quite over just yet. Remember, the top two in the championship separated by 36 points. That's Wombat's lead. Hello, Yellows. That is Rebellion spinning at turn 11. And that's a reset to track if ever I saw one. Those are quite illegal. He's got a damaged front wing on that Alpine as well. Of course, there are exceptions for using a reset to track. For example, if your car is stuck on a curb or stuck in a sand trap or something, I'm sure. But you have to do it in a safe manner, and there were still cars coming through that particular section. So yeah, Wombat's lead is 36 points, which means if Wombat outscores Axis by 5 points, it's done. So long as Axis stays in front of Wombat, the championship fight remains alive. So that's going to be his main goal. Wombat, he could win the championship right here, right now, if he can find a way to catch up to Axis and give him a fight for the race win. If Wombat beats Axis here during this Grand Prix, championship done. Down towards turn 3. The gap's still at 2.7 seconds. Now the rest of the field is pretty spread out at this point. No one's really in any sort of position to try and attack one another. They're all pretty well spread out. KD, who was on fresh tyres, is 10 seconds behind Saucy. I don't think he's going to catch that up throughout the remainder of the race. Sort of this alternate strategy hard to mediums hasn't really worked out for him at all. I think if there was a safety car at about lap 16, 17 or so, that probably would have helped him out quite a lot. But starting out on those hards, it's really put him on the back foot. And he hasn't been able to find any way to move himself forward. And he's not gaining massively on Saucy either. So only gaining a couple of tenths here, a couple of tenths there. So it's not looking good for KD. It looks like he's probably going to finish in P4 once Nico makes his pit stop. Nico, similar story. Still trundling out there, trying to do something. But eventually he has to come in, and that's exactly what he's doing. And he'll move on to a set of... He could move on to a set of soft tyres at this point. Might as well. I think that's what he's doing. Yep, softs at the ready. On they go and away he leaves. And KD will take P4 away from Nico. Moves his way out of the pit. Chisholm will come down the main straightaway. He is too far behind to do anything to try and attack Nico. Guess we could keep our eyes on the leaders then. Top two still separated by 2.7. They're showing that they're pretty even in terms of pace. What's the battery life like? 41% on Access's car. 17% on Wombat's. Blockman in the pits as well. He's moved on to a set of medium compound tyres. Meanwhile, Underwood's giving JBH a bit of a hurry up around the outside at turn 3. Can't get it done. Can he get a switch back here? Maybe at the exit of turn... No, he's going round the outside at turn 4. You don't see that all too often. What a move. He's into P8. Fantastic stuff there from Underwood. Blockman behind JBH now. Closing in on fresh tyres. Can he find a way by through this flat out section towards turn 9? Got some decent straight line speed. He's got plenty of battery to burn if he wants to use some battery. No, you're not going to use any battery? He's not going to use any battery. Well, use some here though. DRS open. Closing the gap towards turn 11. Looks to the inside. Looks to the outside. Can't find a way by. But gets a run on the exit of the right-hander. Does not decide to fully commit to the move just yet. I think he's going to try and go for a simple pass down the main straightaway with DRS. Yeah, it looks like it. JBH with some decent straight line speed, but you can't overcome DRS, I'm afraid. Blockman into P9. Nice. Oh, simple. That wasn't so nice from JBH. Running wide there at the exit of turn 2. Flavius under attack here from Rebellion. Flavius moves into the pits. Ooh, careful there, Flavius. Don't want to cut too much. 2.5 seconds separating the top two, so they're still pretty even in terms of pace. The Wombat's using everything he's got to try and close that gap. Head around turn 2 towards turn 3. Gap still sitting at 2.3. Axis just giving himself leverage over his rival with a plentiful amount of battery. Be able to burn that towards the end of the race as Nico sets a new fastest lap of 1 minute 20.558 through turn 7 and around turn 8. He's now using his battery through this section. Watch the gap increase. Yellows are out. Is that Motion God? No, it's Flavius, I think, who made a mistake there. Blockman sets a new fastest lap. Into the pits goes Motion God. Blockman. Oh, and Underwood. Here we go. This is on. Oh, as Mighty Wombat gets a 3-second time penalty. Well, that's something he really didn't need for the sake of this race. Ideally, he would like to stay penalty free, but now he's got one. And we still have time for a safety car to occur. Yellows are out. Flavius, I think maybe pulling off to the side. Letting people through. Axis 2.1 in front. He can now relax. He knows Mighty Wombat behind has a time penalty, which will affect him towards the end of the race. But he cannot become unfocused. He needs to stay focused. As soon as you lose your focus, that's when the mistakes will creep in. That's where something like we saw at Abu Dhabi happens. And I don't think Axis is going to let that happen again. There's Motion God, I believe, making his way through turns 9 and 10. He's going to provide Axis with a slight distraction. Shouldn't phase the Aston Martin driver though. Not exactly obeying blue flag, so Motion God stated very clearly in the rules that even though ghosting is turned on, you still have to obey blue flags as if the as if the system were turned off. Eventually I got there. Motion God isn't exactly doing that. So he's going to provide a distraction for Axis, and he's going to provide him with some DRS as well. Probably much to the dismay of Mighty Wombat. Gap's now sitting at 2 seconds, demonstrating the pace that Wombat's got. It's unfortunate that he's got a 3-second time penalty next to his name. Really unfortunate. Also, if the results stay as they are, McLaren will become Constructors' Champions for Season 7 here in the America Series. It's something that a lot of us expected from the McLaren outfit with Mighty Wombat and KD. Two class drivers who are very much capable of getting consistent top 5s. Both of them have done that. So all that Wombat and KD need to do is get to the finish, and the Constructors is theirs. Wombat still 2 seconds behind. He hasn't dropped off. Like I said, he's demonstrating the pace that he's got. There's some pretty solid pace out there. Down the main straightaway towards turn 1. Axis will begin lap 26 of 29. We've got 4 laps to go here in Melbourne. Through turn 1 into turn 2. Yellows are out again. I believe that would be Flavius. Yeah, it was. Just having a little oopsie, I think, at turn 11. Either that or he was getting out of the way again with the car behind. 1.8 seconds. Wombat really giving it some to try and catch up. If only he didn't have that time penalty. Oh, and there goes Wombat into the wall. He loses control at turn 7 and slams the barrier. He's now got a missing end plate on the left-hand side. Oh, dearie me. Well, he can thank his lucky stars that he's not out of the race. But he's now got a compromised front wing, and it's going to cost him time. Now, what does he do? Does he pit for a new wing? No, I think is the answer. He's going to stay out, but he has to worry about Saucy. And with that 3-second time penalty, Saucy only has to close in by 2 seconds, and he takes second place away from Wombat. You know, Wombat, he's going to fight on with the damage that he's created. He needs to drive pretty well here. Fortunately, there's a pretty decent sized gap between himself and KD, so he shouldn't have to worry about KD. Not that I think KD would pass him anyway. KD's very much aware of the Drivers' Championship and the fact that his teammates involved in it. He'd be more worried about wrapping up the Constructors. Blockman, a 3-second time penalty. The gap shrinks to 3.3. 3.1 now. Once you have that damaged front wing, you are seriously compromised in terms of raw performance. And it's really showing. Saucy is closing in rapidly. Oh, Wombat. Wombat. Like I said, he can still thank his lucky stars because that could have been a retirement from the race, and somehow it wasn't. Hash with the 3-second time penalty. And now Axis, he just needs to remain focused. He's got no threat from anyone behind him. Just needs to keep his eyes forward and keep it mistake free. If he does that, should be able to take the checkered flag. 2 laps to go through turn 1. And around turn 2, still has Motion God giving him some trouble. Surprised that he hasn't got any time penalties as of yet for ignoring blue flags. I've seen them everywhere around the circuit. Willfully ignored them. Sector 3 yellows. Is that Flavius? It is. Off to the side there. No major drama for Flavius. Up towards the demanding turns of 9 and 10. Just needs to get through them unscathed. Saucy's closing in. He's within touching distance of Mighty Wombat. And Wombat, he can't fight this. He might as well just let Saucy through. There is no point fighting at this stage. You got a damaged car. You got a championship to worry about. Just move yourself into third and then get through the final lap. That's all you got to do. I think that's what he will do as well. Probably when they make their way down the main straight. Down the main straight goes the race leader. He'll cross the line to begin the final lap. The final 3.28 miles of this Australian Grand Prix. Wombat pulls off to the side. And Saucy, he'll just drive on by. That's intelligent driving right there. There's no point fighting. There's 0 point. Just let him through. Let Saucy get on with it. And then take third place. Take the points. Axis around turn 5 for the final time. He gets through the tricky right-hander. Now through this chicane. Need to get through this place unscathed. Does a perfect job at that. Up towards turns 9 and 10. Blockman gets by Hash as well. That's for genuine position too. Both drivers have 6 seconds worth of penalties. Probably been quite frustrated about the fact that Motion God has been sitting right in front of him for this final stage of the race. But he's remained focused. He hasn't put a foot wrong. He makes his way around turn 12. Up towards turn 13, the penultimate corner on the racetrack. One more corner to get through, and he should get through it unscathed, and does. Well, what a fantastic recovery after what happened last week. Axis wins the Australian Grand Prix. Saucy will come home in second position, followed by Mighty Wombat in third. A critical third place for the context of the championship. And KD, he'll make his way back onto the main straight to cross the line in fourth place, which means McLaren are Constructors Champions for Season 7 here in the Americas Series. Nico will cross the line in fifth place. I believe he had a moment as well at the exit of turn 10. I saw his car bringing out yellow flags at the exit of that section, so he might have had a mistake. Shizant P6, followed by Blockman in front of Hash, and Underwood, he would take that position away from Hash. He'll finish him. Oh, he'll take it from Blockman as well. He finishes in P7. How about that? Then it'll be JBH and Rebellion. And I'll quickly grab fastest lap as well. Who got that? Blockman in the halves with a 20.2. Well, I can say with certainty this hasn't been the most exciting race we have ever seen on the America Series. It's sort of a reality check that this is indeed Formula One. And you do get boring races every so often, but it's part of the sport. But it's an important race nonetheless for the context of the championship. This is a result that Axis needed for the sake of the championship, especially after what happened at Abu Dhabi. He'll cut the gap down by 10 points. Wombat will lead by 26 heading into the final round with 41 points on the table heading into that final round. So it's all to play for. But for now, it's some celebration time. And the winner's corridor walks Axis. Like I said, he needed this, especially after what happened last week. A fine drive. Didn't put a foot wrong. He's our Australian Grand Prix winner. Saucy in P2, followed by Mighty Wombat in third. So, the unofficial results of the Australian Grand Prix. Axis is your race winner, winning by 8.5 seconds over Saucy. It would have been an interesting battle between these two if Saucy didn't make a mistake at turn 2 early in the race. But regardless, he ends up finishing in P2. Wombat finishing in third, followed by KD, then Nico in P5, Shesnant in P6, Underwood in 7th, Blockman in 8th with fastest lap, Hash in 9th, JBH in 10th, Rebellion 11th, followed by the 2 Alfa Romeos of Flavius and Motion God. Yeah, it's difficult to overcome straight line speed, Saucy. When you don't have that straight line speed, yeah, it's very, very difficult to overcome it. Potentially Shizant. With the points finishes yourself and Saucy got, yeah, I'd imagine you would jump up to 4th place in the Constructors. Don't think you'll be able to challenge 3rd though. They are a fair way away and you need a really big round next week. At Saudi Arabia. But still, this is a huge points haul for yourselves. But you should definitely take 4th in the Constructors heading into the final round. Theatre. No, not theatre. Doofus. Showroom. But yeah, this is going to be interesting heading into the final round, that's for sure. So, wrong one. That one. So, with Axis winning and Wombat finishing in 3rd, that is a 10-point swing in Axis's favour. The gap between the top 2 reduces from 36 to 26, heading into the final round at Jeddah. As I mentioned, there are 41 points available. You get 10 for a sprint race win, you get 30 for the main race win, plus 1 for fastest lap in the main race. So there are plenty of points to try and fight for. Not to mention that the final round, being at Jeddah, it's definitely one of the most dramatic and controversial racetracks we have on the schedule. Very fast, very demanding. If you make a mistake, the barriers aren't too far away. So we're bound to see plenty of drama in next week's race. Well, it's almost a guaranteed thing. But no, this ought to be interesting heading into the final round. And congratulations to McLaren as well, wrapping up the Constructors' Championship with 1 round to go. But as I mentioned during the stream, it was an expected thing for McLaren with the lineup that they had and the consistency that those 2 drivers provided in terms of results. Yeah, there really wasn't a question who was winning the Constructors' Championship this year. But regardless, congratulations to both Wombat and KD for winning the Constructors for Season 7 for the America Series. But I think with everything said and done, it's time for us to end the stream. I've been LaneEveringham. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for round 15, the final round of the championship at the Jeddah Corniche circuit for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Until then, it's goodbye.